Alright, so we have a preview here for Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and there's some gameplay that's been going around since the game's being previewed at Gamescom. So when this game was announced, me and my co-host took a look at the announcement trailer. Honestly, it was one of the best showcases that I saw from the Summer Games Fest, and we were both naturally impressed with the announcement. So much so that we pretty much already deemed it to be an innovative Game of the Year worthy, potentially, title. And one of the reasons for that is because this is a turn-based game, but it incorporates new action elements, which isn't really common in turn-based games. And the way that it's incorporating these action elements is, again, it's innovative, it's creative, and it looks like something new and fresh. It looks like what Square Enix should have been doing with the Final Fantasy brand for years now, but haven't been delivering. So let's take a look at what IGN has to say about this, and I'll provide commentary throughout.
Ever since I pitted my brand new Bulbasaur against my rival's Charmander in the opening chapter of Pokemon Red, I've loved turn-based combat. But I know this style of battle isn't for everyone. Plenty have skipped over the likes of Baldur's Gate 3, Persona 5, and Marvel's Midnight Suns because of the slower, more managerial-like pace of turn-based combat. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 wants to provide the solution to those issues. The upcoming RPG has plenty of smart ideas that aim to evolve turn-based battles, transforming them from baton-passing attack sequences to thrilling, skill-heavy conflicts. I recently met with developer Sandfall Interactive to watch some of the team play just under an hour of Clair Obscur Expedition 33.
So Sandfall Interactive is actually a French developer. They're using their culture as inspiration for this game when it comes to its art direction and just its overall style in general.
While clearly inspired by Japanese RPG titans like Final Fantasy, Clair Obscur feels distinctly European. Rather than sporting outrageous anime hair and a sword larger than the Empire State Building, protagonist Gustav is a handsomely dressed gent with a face that could be almost mistaken for Robert Pattinson's.
So the point he just made is extremely important. Typically, turn-based games are made by Eastern developers, Asian developers, and those developers typically push for an anime aesthetic when it comes to character design and art direction, which is a turnoff for a lot of people. Square Enix separates itself by going for a more realistic approach, but the character designs are still typically distinctly anime. This game is not doing that. The characters look like real people. They just made a comparison with one of the leading characters to actor Robert Pattinson, who is British, and it seems to be an accurate comparison based off of what I'm seeing with this side-by-side comparison. But not only that, the game just it has a very different style of art direction. If I were to go back here, it's really taking advantage of the this European French, like high Renaissance art style, which is extremely different from any other game within this genre that we typically see. That's one of the reasons I'm looking forward to it. With turn-based games, the art direction is a big part of, what draws you in. It's part of the selling point of the game. The fact that this game is doing something different that we typically don't see, and it's really making great use of Unreal Engine 5, that makes it stand out tremendously. So I'm glad that this pundit pointed that out.
During my demo, he and the equally elegant mage Luna explored the ocean floor-like Flying Waters region, picking through the remains of prior expeditions that had been scattered among the coral. Gustav and Luna are the latest team attempting to defy the will of the Paintress, a godlike figure who kills scores of people each year by painting a number on a monolith. Anyone of that age instantly fades away, Infinity War style. The demo's short hour.
The game seems to be revolving its story around this deity-like figure, which is something that, that's a trope that we typically see with turn-based games. So it's familiar in that sense, but it doesn't seem to be a world-ending threat, at least just from what was just described.
Duration didn't allow for much insight into this story, but what was obvious was the dark and melancholic tone. It seems somewhat literary, in a manner that I found very appealing, rooted in its characters' emotions and fears. Gustav was soon reunited with his foster sister, Mael, and together with Luna, the trio formed a full party. That brings us to those aforementioned evolutionary ideas for turn-based combat.
The camera work here, the graphical style in terms of what's actually going on screen, you know, the little pockets of air that are coming up because they're supposed to be underwater, ergo, right now. Very creative stuff. Very creative stuff. The way the camera pans in combat as you're playing the game. Again, this is clearly high quality, very high quality.
Sandfall was inspired by Sekiro's parry system to implement skill-based elements into the genre's traditional tactical framework. The result is quick-time event augmented turns, with reflex and timing-based actions required in both the attack and defend phases.
So they've implemented a real-time parry system into the game, which, again, that's not something that you typically see in turn-based games. I don't recall playing a turn-based game where that's a regular active part of the gameplay. I like the fact that this game is trying some new things that normally isn't done in the genre.
Clair Obscur isn't the first turn-based RPG to use QTEs in combat, but it's the first that I've seen that seems to put equal emphasis on both the action and tactical aspects. Every attack demands some kind of input, be that reflex testing button prompts or manually aiming a weapon at targets. More complex attacks chain together QTEs, providing a better sense of kinetic energy.
And it's not just the parry system that they've implemented. Every aspect of the combat system has been made, you know, developed in a way to where the player has to interact with it instead of just watching things happen, which is typically what happens in a turn-based game. You just watch animations play out. Instead, you're an active participant, which seems to be the point here. It's what the developers are actually going for. Having to physically, you know, manually aim your weapon if you have a firearm. You know, that's something that we, again, typically don't see. Even the Persona games don't really do that. I like some of the ideas, you know, that they have here. A cautious word was used here, which is QTEs. And, you know, people have varying feelings about QTEs. QTEs aren't bad automatically in every game that they appear in. It depends on how they're used. Here with this game, clearly they're an active part of the combat system. And you have to utilize them, which, since it's a turn-based game, it's going to rely on timing. So again, I think that's actually a really creative idea that they've implemented here.
In each phase of the fight, but it's when your characters are on the defensive that Clair Obscur's action elements really impress. You can dodge, jump, or parry every incoming blow, and perfect deflects trigger powerful counterattacks.
So it's not just parrying, but you can also dodge as well. And they have the prompts for that on screen right here.
Gone are the days of just watching a boss unleash hell on your party. Here you can actively avoid and punish damage. The developers told me that you can even do a no-hit run of the entire game. Right.
That's very impressive. So as he just said, the developers confirmed that you can play through this entire game and never once take damage. If you're good enough to utilize the parry system and the dodge system, it looks like you can jump too, right here. If you're good at defense, like really good at defense, you can play through the entire game with a no damage run, which is, I've never heard of that with a turn-based game personally.
Right up to and including the final battle. Alongside these pacier ideas are more traditional staples. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 uses a menu-driven interface that looks like Persona 5's UI as...
I'm glad that they mentioned Persona, because when I first saw the announcement trailer, the UI did look very Persona-ish to me, which is a good thing. It gives the game a sense of style, a unique sense of style.
as translated by Dishonored. Each move requires a character to spend from their pool of action points, which gradually increases as the turns tick by. Parries refund 1 action point, and so there's an incentive to try and nail that deflect window.
Okay, so what he just said is, as you use skills, this action meter right here decreases because the skills utilize a certain number of action points. You regain action points by performing successful parries and I'm assuming dodges as well. That's actually a very interesting system because, once again, it forces the player to actually be actively engaged 24/7 with what's going on in the game. With many turn-based games, you could easily be multitasking, doing something else, and be paying attention to what's actually taking place on screen. Because, typically turn-based games don't require that level of attention. But this game is changing that. That's something about this game that has gained my interest in it.
The better you defend yourself, the better attacks you can unleash on the next turn. Each character's ability set is unique to them, which hopefully makes them feel like significant individuals both in and out of combat. Spearheading their kits are special skills with bespoke mechanics. Luna is able to stain enemies with her spells, and then later consume those stains to inflict big damage, while Mael is able to switch through a variety of stat-altering stances depending on which attack she uses.
So basically what he's describing here is that each character has been designed in a different way, and each character has their own unique traits and their own unique abilities, which, that's not new for a turn-based game, but the way that they're doing it here really makes the characters individually feel distinct.
Samfall Interactive also promises a deep progression system for each party member. Each level attained allows you to upgrade each character's stats Dungeons & Dragons style, as well as choose a new ability from a skill tree. On top of that are Pictos, trinkets that provide tactic shifting passive skills, plus the unique properties of the weapons each party member wields. Samfall
So they have collectible pickups that will provide specific stat-altering buffs in battle, as we just saw with the Pictos. And this game, is clearly taking inspiration from multiple sources. They mentioned Final Fantasy towards the beginning, but it's also taking inspiration, I think even more so, from Persona, Dungeons & Dragons, and other turn-based games, rather than the older style turn-based Final Fantasy games.
Passive skills, plus the unique properties of the weapons each party member wields. Samfall promises that combining and upgrading these elements in the right way can unlock wild and destructive synergies. I hope this character build system allows players to put together fascinating, tactics-driven parties, akin to the way that card game players hone a deck to a particular strategy.
As we just saw right here, there's going to be attack animations where you're going to have to either parry or dodge in sequence. So it's not just one static attack, but you'll have to, parry or dodge multiple times, successfully in a row in order to avoid damage or decrease the amount of damage that you do receive.
Due to the somewhat contextless nature of the demo, much of what I saw outside of combat was harder to judge. What I did take away was the sense that this is almost like a next-gen Final Fantasy from an alternate timeline. Like Square's RPGs of old,
the art direction and the world design and the character design and everything here just looks brilliant. It looks amazing. And again, they're really taking advantage of the engine. This is being made once again with Unreal Engine 5, and it shows.
Clair Obscur is not open world, opting instead for linear regions, complete with save point-like resting spots. Sandfall promises these regions have been built to be expansive enough to allow off-the-beaten-path adventures though.
So this game, as he just said, is not an open world game. That's something that me and my co-host were curious about. I think the game being designed to be a more linear experience is actually for the better. The open world genre is something that's become too oversaturated, and there's not enough innovation that's currently taking place with games like that in the industry. I think open world games have really reached their ceiling in terms of innovative ideas, at least for right now. Having more linear experiences is actually something that's for the best especially with a new IP such as this.
Including optional bosses. At this early stage, I can't say how strong Clair Obscur's exploration chops are, but what I saw ranged from the relatively mundane, such as shooting 3 symbols to unlock loot, to the genuinely funny. I met a sentient, French-speaking paintbrush called Noko, who I sadly can't show you here. While I've yet to form any significant opinions on its wider gameplay ideas, I can say that I really liked what I saw of Clair Obscur's world. It has concepts and characters I'm looking forward to delving into, strong voice acting, and a genuinely gorgeous graphical style. But the thing I'm really excited about is the smart skill smarts loop that the combat system seems to thrive on. A cerebral moment of lining up a clever attack is followed by a speedy burst of rhythmic button taps, a perfectly judged parry, and then it's back to quietly contemplating exactly what attack will rupture your foe's defenses. Staunchly.
So he basically just described the gameplay loop of the combat system. Again, everything about this game just looks brilliant. This is easily Game of the Year worthy material if they play their cards right. I don't have a single negative thing to say about anything that I've seen of this game. Nothing. Everything looks great. The graphical style is fantastic, with the engine and everything. The art direction, character design, combat system, the premise of the story is very intriguing. All of it just looks fantastic.
Traditional turn-based fans may consider this up and down tempo a bit too jarring. Tactical combat for the short attention span generation. But from my perspective at least, this is the fresh approach the system has needed for some time.
I agree.
When I finally get to play Clair Obscur Expedition 33 for myself, it proves itself to be a more involving turn-based experience, as opposed to a system that simply makes concessions for the action-loving crowd.
So, this game is coming out next year in 2025. It will be available for free via Game Pass, so I'll probably play it first up on there. But I'm really leaning into paying full price for this. I do want to try the game first and see, what's what. So I'll probably play it first via Game Pass, and if I like it enough, which I already like it right now, then I'll go ahead and purchase the game for full price on Steam. I already have the game on Steam via my wish list, so I do want to support this developer because we do need more innovative games like this. Right now, there's not too many games on the horizon, especially new IP, that's really offering anything innovative or remotely interesting. This is one of the few games that's, doing something different. And again, I want to support the developers if I can. So that's Clair Obscur Expedition 33, again, set for release in 2025. I'm very, very curious to hear more from this game. It looks like it could easily be a Game of the Year contender.